This video is brought to you by none other than Hire Heroes, you guys. Hire Heroes is your one-stop shop when it comes to virtual staffing and making sure that you have qualified talent with your business. One thing that I love about Hire Heroes, you guys, is they've actually gone through the process already of vetting and making sure that your staff member is well trained to best fit your needs. Whether you need help with social media work, posting things on your accounts, responding to people that send messages to your social media accounts, whether you need help with data entry or a multitude of other things that they're qualified to do, Hire Heroes has got you covered. If you're having trouble finding quality talent and number two, affording to be able to run payroll for that talent, Hire Heroes has got you covered with an affordable alternative to have a virtual assistant working for your business. There's a link down in the description of this video to where you can learn more about getting your own VA through Hire Heroes. I certainly recommend it. They're what we use in our business for all of our virtual assistant needs, and you will want to make sure that you check them out today. Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Brindle here, and I am back with another video where I'm talking to somebody doing big things in the industry today. I'm here with my man, Michael B., with Sentinel Financial. Brother, how you doing today?
You know, if I was doing any better, there'd be two of me.
I love it. I love it. We got some awesome topics of conversation for you guys here today, but to kind of start out, I want to kind of give you the floor, Michael, to talk a little bit about your intro and how you got into the business, just in case anybody's watching and might not be familiar with you. Talk a little bit about it, right? Like how did a young Michael get into the insurance business? How did you find it? And how did we get to where we are now?
Yeah, so I actually love telling this story. My story is different because a lot of the people you'll interview and talk to or just meet throughout your insurance career, they're like, oh, I got into insurance to help people, or there was a tragedy in our family. I felt compelled to get into the industry. Mine all started from vengeance, right?
Ooh, I like
Yeah.
this. I like this already.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I was working a corporate job at a telecom company, and I really won't get into names, but I was up for promotion and I didn't get it. And I
Mm.
personally felt slighted, and I was like, you know what? I can do better elsewhere. So I knew somebody from high school who was in the insurance world. They were doing life insurance, and I thought to myself, wow, if this person can do it, I could do it, and I could be significantly better. So I ended up on my 22nd birthday driving to Tucson, Arizona from Phoenix. It's like a 2-hour drive. I took my life insurance test that day, passed, then went home and partied. It was my birthday,
Yeah.
and I started off in the life industry. Over time, I realized the life industry, it's kind of a spinning hamster wheel,
Mm-hmm.
and what I wanted was a combination of longevity and security. And you find that much more in the health insurance industry than you do in the life side. Like a lot of our comp is renewal based or residual based. And on the life side, you really don't get that unless you sell a lot of whole life where you have a large agency where you get a lot of overrides.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can be a one-man band in the health insurance space, and honestly, you could live pretty well. I've seen it. I know you know a lot of people who are like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped in the health space, and it's been awesome ever since.
I love it. I love it. It's so interesting to me, right? Like, because I'll talk to people all the time that are maybe, in the life space. They've never been in the health space, the ACA space, the Medicare space. And they'll be like, I thought there wasn't any money in health. And I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm like, where is this information coming from? And it's always shocking to people, like I talked to somebody, I'm like, probably about 3-4 months ago on the phone that was shopping for FMOs. And they were like, they dropped the line on me. They're like, I was talking to this life guy, this life recruiter, and he said there's no money in Medicare. I'm like, you could have fooled me. And I'm like, no big deal. We're 7-figure agency, $1 million plus agency. I don't know, but there's no money in it though. I'm cool with them thinking that. But it's just fascinating to me, right? Like people kind of throw that out there in other spaces when it couldn't be farther from the truth.
You know what I think it comes from? I think it comes from like a scarcity of agent mindset,
Yeah.
right? We can both agree that let's take the Medicare conversation, right? Let's say I start 10 agents in Medicare at like street level. And let's say you're a GA, right? You're making your $40, $50,
Mm-hmm.
$25 override, right? That is significantly smaller than if I took the same 10 agents and I, put them into the life insurance pipeline and I got all of them a 100% commission and you're at a 130,
Yeah.
right? If you took the same volume of transactions you do on the Medicare side, where you're maybe writing 20 applications a month outside of open enrollment, right? You're making, what is it, 10 grand in overrides versus if you give them 20 transactions on the life insurance side with an average life insurance policy of 800 commissionable per year, right? You making, 30 or $40,000 in overrides that month. Like the scale of it was so
Yeah.
different, which is why I think everyone gets pushed into the life side so hard. Plus, I mean, coming from the life space, right? I heard people were selling $0 Medicare plans, $0 ACA plans. Like, how are they getting paid? I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
the government's funding it. And I was like, I love government money. Pass me those ERC credits too while you're at it, right? I'll take everything. But I think truthfully, that's where it comes from. And it's such a
Yeah.
wrong mentality, right? We had somebody ask, how would you transition from working in an office environment to doing insurance full time? Like, what would be your path? And I run and manage a few life insurance groups, and we have a lot of part-time agents in there who ask these same questions. I would honestly, like 3 years ago, I would have been like, you got to save this much money and you just got to dive right into it. And that was really bad advice, but it came from good intention. Now I tell
Sure.
people, listen, on the health side, it's a lot easier, right? If you find the right FMO, let's take the Medicare side, then we can take the ACA side. On the Medicare side, if you find the right FMO who can help subsidize some marketing and has some really good field agents in the area that are willing to take you out, after you get done with your office time or on weekends to these sales calls, and you can see a Medicare presentation done in person, that's key. It's huge,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Medicare commission schedule is built to be a renewal and residual based agreement, right? Carrier will pay you X amount of dollars per year to handle their clients so that they don't have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I call it a lazy model, but I love it because it shifts so much liability and so much paperwork and so much, how should I put it, like office employees into the field instead.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of it. If if you were, starting insurance part time, I tell you to go on the health side and either ride along with somebody in the Medicare who can help subsidize your lead cost, or pair you with somebody in the field. Or if they're going to go on the ACA channel, it's a lot quicker because it's volume, right? If I was to ask you how many husband wife duos you write on the Medicare side, I can almost guarantee it's lower than the percentage of, family of 4, 5, 6 that you'd find on the ACA side, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that'd be very accurate. I think it's such a wider net of people, right? Because ACA is anybody under 65.
Mm-hmm.
Medicare is anybody over 65. There's going to be more of that widespread demographic, I think, to where you'll find, those families on the ACA side that need to be written. They need to be all written together. And, it's a great opportunity. And I think agents don't realize that sometimes that, like, let's say you're making $20 a month on an ACA plan, 25,
Mm.
30, whatever the case might be. You write a family of 4, you're doing one app and you're getting that commission. Like if your commission's low, let's say, and it's 20 a month, you're getting $80 a month on a family of 4. And that's substantial. That's substantial. And it's pretty easy too.
Yeah, and it actually brings up a kind of a funny point. So when I first got into ACA, I was like, oh, like, here's how many applications I've done. And you were like, holy crap. When in
Yeah.
reality, I was actually talking about lives because like our average was like 1.7 lives per application, right? People are like, oh my God, I did 50 apps in a week. That's great. I'm like, no, I did 50 lives. And I was like,
Yeah.
I judge it by how I personally get paid, not by like, oh, there's one piece of paper with 4 names on it, right?
Sure.
So, and that's kind of how I tell my agents. I'm like, listen, if you're recording things, you want to record it by how you're going to be paid because it's the easiest metric to track, right? What happens if you write a family of 8? You're only going to get paid on 5 of them usually. It's one application. What number are you writing down? You want to write down the
Right.
amount of lives you're going to be paid for. That way, it's easier for commissions tracking if you have goals set up. So for that same person who wants to transition part time, I actually tell them start in the Medicare ACA space. In the Medicare space, once you have 100 to 150 clients that you've done part time, and they can start referring people over to you. once you hit like that 100 to 150 number, you can probably start transitioning out of your job because you're getting either enough monthly income or enough advanced income that will replace it. But yes, still have your
Yeah.
little nest egg. Conversely, on the ACA side, once you have 200-ish lives on the ACA side of the house that are monthly and it's consistent, it's not like you have garbage retention. Once you have like 200 consistently paying you, you're making, 4 to 6, maybe 7 grand a month. It's huge,
Yeah.
right? You can go ahead and
Substantial.
leave and just do it full time. And the
Yeah.
question always comes down to, how do I find my ACA clients? How do I find my Medicare clients? I can speak to the ACA side. I made a joke on stage at a mastermind almost a year ago today in Vegas. And I said, if I could, I would go to every Waffle House known to man and I would advertise health insurance. I'd advertise ACA to all of them because they fit the exact demographic I want of people who are between probably 100 to 150% of the federal poverty line. They're
Yep.
not offered benefits. Most of them are part-time and they're thankful to have something, right? I was like, if I get in front of every Waffle House, I guarantee I'd have 100,000 members tomorrow because like you laugh, but
It's
like
100% true though. I laugh because it's true, because it's 100% spot on. Um, yeah. And I think that's such a, if agents kind of got that message and they're like, okay, this is your ideal client, they kind of know which direction to kind of go for a little bit. They know what kind of people that they should be targeting and kind of going after a little bit. Um, and on top of that, you might get some kick-ass, waffles and eggs out of it,
or you get to watch a fight in person. Like, who knows?
You never know. It's all over the place.
It's a
Um,
mystery.
I want to shift gears a little bit to, we were having a great conversation before we actually jumped on recorded here about carrier reps. This is something I've not been shy talking about in the past. There's good carrier reps, there's bad carrier reps in our industry. Talk a little bit about, I guess, carrier reps, and, kind of the impact they can make in an agent's life. Having a good relationship with them is key, but also like, how much can it impact your business if you have a good one versus a bad one? Talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
So I'll make a controversial opinion. I think every amazing carrier or even FMO rep was a previous agent. I'll die on that hill, right? I personally believe that if, let's say, I call one of my main Medicare carriers and I have like my regional rep, if I tell my regional rep some of the issues I'm seeing in my specific territory, and their answer is, oh man, that stinks, or like they give me some generic thing to go fix. I'm like, were you an agent? Do you know what I'm going through? It's the same conversation you have with somebody who hasn't written an application themselves in 10 or 20 years. The
Yep.
demographic has completely shifted. A lot of things are more digital. There's much more information out there that you have to cut through all the shenanigans because everyone has a cousin or a brother or an uncle that's been screwed over when it comes to insurance. Everyone, right?
Yep.
I can tell you 100 terrible stories for every one good story that's out there. And I personally think a good carrier rep has experienced that for at least a few years. And then through merit of work effort was offered a position by the carrier. I think that's the best pipeline. Um, I've seen it on both sides of the house, right? I'll highlight a really good carrier rep. I won't name names, but it's a post that I saw in a few insurance groups. And it was somebody who owns, he doesn't own it actually. I believe he's like a senior vice president at a carrier. And he said, hey, I have account managers who are in these specific territories. They want to go on a ride along with an experienced agent. They want to see a day of appointments to see all the questions you get, how you're offering the products and services, and how we can change our sales training and our sales attitude to support an agent better. I was like, holy crap. I think that's the first time in 5 years of being in this industry I've ever seen someone say that. 5 years. I've seen it once. And the person who's running the group immediately started tagging agents. And then other agents were tagging other agents. And they're like, hey, like, we have this person in San Diego and this person in, Philadelphia. Like, go with them. Like, they're good. And I was like, that's so killer. Because if you think about it, how much better would a carrier perform if they had the intel of being in the field with somebody who's productive? Huge.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I personally think that's what makes a good carrier rep is somebody who knows what you're actively going through versus a bad carrier rep. I just had a carrier recently with the person I was working with. either they were let go or they transitioned out of their role, whatever it was. And I'd been messaging them and calling them, and I was getting no responses. And it's only, today that I found out that I have a new rep. And I was like, man, that could have saved me like really awkward emails of like, hey, where is our quote? And I'm like, I'll find out for you today. Like it's such a different conversation when you have somebody who's always in your corner like that. Now, I understand carriers have their own manning issues, and you could blame the economy or the presidency, or Mercury's in retrograde, so everyone's a little pissy right now. You can blame whoever you want, but it comes a lot of personal accountability. I was accountable with my clients saying, hey, I don't know what's going on. Like, I just haven't had an answer. The rep who took over was very accountable. And actually their manager ended up contacting me also saying, hey, here's what's going on. We apologize. I think that's so killer versus some of these juggernaut carriers who hold 30% of the market share and won't be named, who just don't say a word to you. And then you get an email like a month later, hey, so-and-so's gone. And you're like,
Yeah.
who's my new point of contact? So-and-so's gone. That's it. That's the email. Sometimes it's even missing the logo, and you're like, nah, I'm gonna jump off a cliff, dude. How am I gonna sell these plans if there isn't a rep?
It's a super interesting conversation to me, because there are so for me, I've dealt with a lot of carrier reps in my day, right? And what I can say to anybody watching this is, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're going to have bad carrier reps, you're going to have good carrier reps. Michael is spot on that there's a lot of carrier reps that were previously agents. There's a lot of them out there that they were agents in some kind of form or fashion. Maybe they were captive for the carrier and they moved up a level. Maybe they were independent, they didn't make it. There are, I'm just going to say this, it might get me in trouble, but there are a lot of carrier reps out there that are failed agents, just kind of point blank. And not all, and to be clear, a lot of the ones that I have seen that were not previously agents, that weren't failed out agents, they'll go in, they'll be a carrier rep for a while, and then they'll blossom and they'll go off and maybe they become an agent. Like one of our biggest competitors that we have locally here, like for real, was a previous carrier rep for one of our regional carriers here. He was a carrier rep for about 10 years, and he was a good one. And he went off and started his own agency, and the connections this dude had, kind of going in already, was massive. He's definitely our biggest competitor locally here by far, in my opinion. But he started as a carrier rep. And so I find there's a lot of carrier reps that were failed agents previously. And then there's other carrier reps that have, I think there's three categories. There's that, there's failed agents previously. There is jumping around from one carrier to another. Like, how many carriers reps do you see like they've worked for 6 different carriers in the last 15 years? They keep bouncing around. Then there's the third category of someone that's new to the industry. The carrier rep job was their first introduction to the industry, and they are working with these agents and they see how much money these agents are making. And the carrier reps sometimes working twice as hard as some of these agents. They're like, I'm getting screwed. And they go off and they start their own agencies, and sometimes they do really well. So it's a very interesting dynamic. It's an interesting role that they're in, because they're almost like an upline for the carrier to agents in their market.
Mm-hmm. I actually think it's kind of funny. You're like, oh, they jump around carrier to carrier. Dude, I've seen a few of these carrier reps on LinkedIn, and they're like, like work history, just a graveyard of broken dreams. And most times I actually can't fault them, because I'm like, oh, like that carrier pulled out of this market, or oh, that carrier's bankrupt, or oh, like, that carrier blew itself up. Like, and I understand like the really good ones are gonna always go to the place that takes care of them.
Yeah.
I actually agree with you. I actually think the regionals attract some of the absolute best talent, because I mean, you're in Utah, right? You're in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
There is a specific ACA carrier out there, absolutely dominates the market. Good luck getting it if you're outside the state. What's funny is you and me know exactly who we're talking about.
It immediately.
Yeah. And I imagine their carrier reps are kick ass, because they only need to know one market. They already have the dominance there. And one day, like their senior brokerage director or something else can say, screw this, dude, I can go do this myself. And you'll see that with a bunch of places. And I agree. I think some of the best agency managers and best agents I've ever known in my life used to work for a carrier did right by the agents that are in their territory. When they transitioned out to go on their own, they built these, I guess you call it like a supercharged machine, right? There's somebody I know who's extremely successful in Houston, and that was their pipeline. They worked at a carrier and they made so many connections. And when they transitioned out, they ran a business, not an agency, a business. And I think that's huge. Like they
Yeah.
actually pay taxes. They got their entity license. They have LLCs. They have a succession plan. Like, wow, you're legitimate, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's so many of these like one man bands flying around that are, sole props. And I mean, I'm not going to make fun of that because I was that for a long time too. But you like, man, do you run a business or does the business run you sometimes?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I want to get to some questions, right? So like you had the foresight of asking the Facebook group kind of what some topics of conversation we should have prior to doing this podcast. And I should probably do that every time I interview someone, honestly. But they had some great questions that I wanted to kind of bring up and kind of have a conversation about. My favorite one actually on here is transitioning from full-time office work to insurance sales and also going part-time to full-time. What do you think, right? Like you're a young guy, you've gone through this yourself, you mentor agents, right? Like, what do you think is the key from being able to go part-time with a job, maybe being able to quit that job and going full-time? And, what do you think is really something that someone needs to be concentrated on to make that a reality?
So I mentioned a little bit earlier where it's like you want to find the niche that's going to help pay you residually. It's a lot less risk. But I truly think the biggest sticking point when you're transitioning over, you need to find a solid, proven mentor. Like, I think mentor now at this point is a disgusting freaking word because it is. So it's all encompassing, right? There
Yeah.
are fantastic mentors in this industry. Some people who have, lost more knowledge in the industry than I'll ever hope to gain, right? People who've been doing this for 50 freaking years. Like, I remember when it was just Medicare supplement insurance. And I'm like, damn, you need to be on a dementia plan. Right. But in seriousness, like I truthfully think the right mentorship is the most important part. You have to find somebody who can do one of two things. A, they've been where you are. They were full time, somewhere else, and they started transitioning slowly over to insurance full time, or they have successfully mentored agents into doing that because no
Mm-hmm.
one else is going to have that experience. I'll say I was lucky. And the reason why I was lucky, I started this at 22. I had this many dependents. I had like my bills, like I think about it, I probably had like less than $2,000 a month in like bills that were due. So it wasn't extremely difficult for me to transition to this and doing it full time. There are people who are doing this who are real adults and have families and like real obligations.
Yeah.
And I truthfully think that is much harder. It's like my parents, side story, my parents yell at me all the time to go back to college, to finish my degree and have something I can frame on a wall somewhere, right? And my mom would tell me, Michael, it is much easier to do this when you're young and you don't have kids versus the people you see on the TV commercials who are like, I'm a single parent and I had to go get my degree. She's like, do you imagine how hard it is? She's like, I deal with your jackass every day, right? She's like, imagine dealing with somebody who's like pooping themselves still and you
Yeah.
have to go to school. Same thing with transitioning into a career. The younger you do this with the less amount of obligations that you have, the easier it is. You have to find the mentor, listen to their guidance, and see if they can help you transition over using the health insurance method, right? Become a localized expert, use your spheres of influence. Maybe there's somebody who's really good at grassroots marketing. Maybe that FMO or the agency partner, your mentor, has a lot of spillover, or they have cancellations and they just send you to go fix those. And now that's your book of business because the agent still gets an override. They get or the mentor gets compensated in overrides to train you. Like, I personally think once you nail down your mentor, you put down like a 3-month action plan and a 6-month action plan. And then the 1-year mark is when you make the transition. If you're in this lagging part time for more than a year, pick a pot, right? We're not gonna get too
Yeah.
vulgar, but pick a pot, right?
Yes.
Or no, it's do something or get off the pot. That's the actual phrase. And
Yeah.
I think it's like at that year mark, you need to reevaluate what you're doing. If you're still, working full time at some corporate job and then part time doing insurance, you got to make a decision because, like, at that year mark, especially in the health insurance side, we're about to go into annual enrollment period for Medicare and open enrollment period for health insurance. You know how pulled thin you'd be if you had to re-enroll people in two different verticals while having a full. You'd shoot yourself. It's terrible. You need to make the decision. So finding a mentor is step one. Step two is listen to your damn mentor. And step three is to have the action plan and tell yourself 1 year is the absolute limit. At that year mark, if you didn't fully transfer over, insurance probably isn't for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And it's very true. There's a humongous difference of the guy that is 21 that's getting in, no kids, no spouse. That was me as well. I got in at 20, no spouse, no child, no mortgage, no car payment, like none of that stuff. Like, and also, like, you're young, you got stamina, you're hungry, like you got the energy, man. You can go out and you can freaking, pound the pavement as much as you need to and nothing's going to happen to you. Like, you're 55, 60 years old, you're trying to go out and pound the pavement. Like, you just don't got the energy that you used to have for a lot of people. And, so there's a big difference between the 21-year-old guy and the 55-year-old guy that's got 3 kids, a wife, a mortgage, all these responsibilities, private school bills, stuff like that. And, I don't think that's something that gets talked about enough. I think there's a lot of recruiters in our space that are just like, welcome all, come one, come all, like, this is for you. This is the vehicle for all. I think there's a lot of agents in our space that have been doing it 3, 4, 5 years, and they're still doing it part-time because they just never get the momentum. And I mean, sometimes, having a mentor might be the person to sit down with you and be like, this might not be for you.
Yeah.
As hard as that is, you might not want to hear that.
I agree. And I'll tell you a funny story. I had somebody a few weeks ago come and talk to me. They have a small agency. It's like 8 or 9 agents, spread around a few different states. They wanted to come work with me on the ACA side. We had the conversation and he's like, yeah, I've, talked with 3 other groups. Here's what they're offering me. He's showing me like the comp sheets and like here's what we give you. And I looked at this stuff and I looked at what he wanted and I thought to myself, damn, we are not a fit. And like, it's twofold. One, it's extremely empowering to be like, no, I choose not to, work with you. I choose not to associate with you. On the other hand, it's like, damn, how much money did I lose by not putting my name on the line for the upline? Like, there's a lot of things that go through your head. And I truthfully think that a lot of recruiters in this industry have looked at it as a body game. There are so many on the health side, you don't see it because there's not like the override and all the levels built out. Like, you can't run an MLM in health insurance, in my opinion, not successfully because there's not enough levels to be built out. There's not enough advanced commissions. Only thing you really get is carrier marketing money, but like that has to be substantiated or you just don't get it the next year. Right. Also, we're looking at you uplines who take the marketing money and buy really expensive cars. Suck.
Yeah.
Right. Give the agents their money.
Oh, I didn't get my marketing money, but you have a yacht on Facebook now.
Yeah, you bastard. But I truthfully think, like, on the lifestyle, you just get flooded with people coming in because of all these different MLM groups who are built off of you need to write X amount of business and have X amount of bodies. And I think that's the wrong way to run an industry. That's kind of why we get such a bad rap, is just very undereducated agents who could fog a window and pass the insurance test, which, by the way, isn't that hard. I kind of took it hungover after, being on a cruise. There was a lot of things that happen in this industry. You're like, how does this person get a license? It's not ultra difficult. Now, there are still people who fail the life insurance exam. There's people who still fail the AHIP, which it's open book. I don't know how that happens, but that's a sign you probably don't want that agent, by the way. But you just have all these, like, this massive people coming in, and you just, as an entire industry, as mentors, as leaders, we need to stop associating with everybody and stop accepting everybody to come work with us. All right. We need to be able to say no, right? Saying no to that guy I felt pretty cool about it a few weeks later when I saw that they still did not contract with anybody. And I thought to myself, damn, I saved myself weeks of wasted time. hours of conversations that would have gone nowhere. So it's a good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's truly in the point where your business is reached enough of a growth standpoint that
Mm-hmm.
you can't waste your time on people that aren't a good fit. You just can't.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
and I think that's the point where you can tell where somebody's at in their journey, right? Versus like, will you take everybody and anybody with a pulse, or are you looking for the right fit? And yeah, I mean, famously, we've turned down more people than we've taken over the years. Like it's probably 2-1, honestly, like of people that we turn away versus that we take. And I've been such a big believer in that, because we've taken the wrong people. And sometimes I'm wrong, by the way. Sometimes I'm wrong. Like, I've turned people away. They've gone on other places and done well, and I got to eat that. It is what it is. But for every one of those, there's probably like 30 or 40 that I'm right about.
Damn.
So it's very important, I think. And that goes, if you're watching this and you're just a producer and you're not working with agents and you're just working with clients, sometimes in a blue moon, you have to do that with a client too. Like
That's powerful.
not all clients are created equal. Some are preventing you from getting the next 10. And yeah, it's a very good point. I'm glad that you brought that up. I want to be respectful of your time, but I do have one more question I want to ask you to kind of like close this thing out.
Let's do it.
Talk to me about the stand-up stuff. Anybody that
God.
follows this guy on social media, that been doing stand-up comedy, in clubs, and I saw a video clip, and you're pretty good, my brother. You're pretty good. How did that happen? How did that come up? Talk about that a little bit.
So I've wanted to do it for a long time, right? So when I was traveling a lot, when I first started transitioning into the ACA space, I ended up going out and having a great time in Miami. And
I love Miami.
It's a great city. If you're an insurance agent, it's a pretty kick-ass city. Stay away from Sarasota. That's the dark place. That's where the light doesn't touch. I'm just kidding. There's a lot of agents out there. It's just like it's an insurance mecca for some reason. It's really pretty. Anyway, so I'm in Miami. I had a few drinks in me, and I was walking by a comedy club. It was like a Wednesday night. Like, why was I drinking on a Wednesday night in the first place? So I walk into this comedy club. They're doing an open mic, and I was like, I could do this. So I ended up going on stage for an open mic set for like 8.5 minutes in Miami, just ranting. And some people thought it was really funny, and they were trying to buy me more drinks. And I was like, please, no, I have meetings tomorrow. Like, I can't smell like a dumpster. So I told myself, like, dude, I can do this. Started watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon. I was like, dude, I could do stand-up comedy. Like, she's pretty funny, but I was like, I am hysterical. I can do this. I don't even have a team of writers behind me. This is all me, right? And I have years worth of material, and a lot of that actually comes from insurance, right? I mean, I can tell you a funny story right now just to make people on the podcast laugh, and this will resonate. And when I first started doing life insurance, I would door knock all my leads, every single one. Can't really do that on the health insurance side because there's a lot of regulations. But on the life side, fair game. So door knock, and I'm in this trailer park in Phoenix in the summer. It's like 106 degrees outside, blazing, right? So door knock in this trailer. I see a sign that's on the door, and it says oxygen in use. And I was like, shit. And I was like, I'm writing guaranteed issue, right? And I was like, I'm writing something, though. So I get into the trailer and just stanks to high hell. Like, if you do life insurance and you're like listening to the show, ugh, yeah, the trailer stank. So I walk into this lady's trailer, and she's wheeling around her little oxygen tank. She got the cannulas in. She's wheeling it around, got the right. And we sit down. We start talking about life insurance. She's like, yeah, I really do need this, honey. And she's like, I'm glad that you're here today. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Homegirl pulls out a pack of cigarettes, right? And I'm like, there's no way, dude. And so she lights a cig. She pulls her cannulas out, right? Whatever the nose things are called. She pulls them out, lights a cigarette, begins smoking. And I was like, hey, I have weak lungs. Would you mind not? She's like, oh, honey, don't worry about it. I got weak lungs too. I was like, oh,
we have that in common.
Of course you do. So this is the part that kills me. Homegirl takes the cigarette and puts it out on the oxygen tank. And I look at the oxygen tank, dude, and there's like little burn marks all over the damn thing. So this isn't the first time. This is a repeated pattern. This is serial killer level stuff, dude. So she keeps putting these freaking cigarettes out. So we're going through the conversation. And I don't know. I think it's like just second nature to her. Without thinking about it, she lights up another cigarette maybe 20 minutes later. And this time I let her just do the whole cigarette. I'm not going to ask her twice, right? Like it's her house. Like I'm a guest. I'm trying to sell her something. Like it's a no-no. It's like if they offer you water, doesn't matter what's floating in the water, you drink the damn water. Yeah. You're trying to make you've been there, haven't you? And you're like,
yeah,
bro.
Yes. Yes.
Like, why is this water scented?
there's the cat box smell that hits you in the face when you walk in. There's just some things that anybody that's gone out in the field, they're like, oh yeah, I've been there.
So she's smoking her cigarette. She's close to finishing it. She puts it out on the oxygen tank. And I was like, honey, listen, I can't help you. You're on active oxygen. You're a smoker. Like if I offered you any life insurance, when I showed you the quote, you're going to have a heart attack right here. That's just bad for everybody. What I do have is I have an accidental death policy. So if you ever don't pull your cannulas out, and you take your cigarette and your family gets paid. And she's like, oh, yeah, that sounds pretty good, honey. And I was like, all right. So I wrote her an AD&D policy. It's like I close the door, I leave, and I think to myself, holy crap, I survived that. So I did what any logical, sharp salesperson would do, and I door knocked every trailer within like 300 feet of hers. I'd knock on the door. I'm like, hey, my name is Michael. I sell life insurance. Your neighbor over there is on oxygen. She smokes cigarettes. She's a redneck atom bomb waiting to happen. You need life insurance. And one of the guys answers the door. I tell him the spiel. He's like, oh, damn. Yeah, come on in, man. We give you some of that life insurance. I was like, oh, here we go. So like, I tell that story to everybody. I'm like, you don't understand what a insurance agent goes through. And I'm guessing realtors are the same way. And home inspectors, roofer, anybody who has to associate with the general public in their own home. Yeah, you've seen some stuff. Mm-hmm. So I have years worth of comedy material from that because it's like, damn, dude, like she's a redneck atom bomb. Like I wouldn't want to go anywhere near there.
Yeah. Some of the best posts in the Facebook group are asking agents to share experiences of some kind. You know, like we did one a couple weeks ago. What's your most embarrassing moment on an appointment? And there were some killer stories that came out of that. Like someone said, I don't remember who said it. So shout out to whoever said this. It was hilarious. Like I was dying reading it on the other end of the phone, in case you were wondering. But person goes into a purse, pull out a pen to fill out an app, and pulls out a tampon instead. So like there's nothing better than like that kind of material, you know, like that kind of like real life story that you've been through out in the field. There's nothing better.
I agree.
Well, Michael, thank you for doing this, my friend. This was fun. It was long overdue. It's a shame we hadn't done anything together previously, but we'll have to get back together after open enrollment and shoot another one, do a follow-up. If anybody's watching this and 100%, if anybody's watching this and, you know, they wanted to get in touch with you, maybe, you know, something you said really resonated with them, what's the best place that they can find you?
Honestly, it's going to be Facebook. I am on there every day, either making something funny or I'm posting things in groups that are informative. My name is Michael Binyaminov, long Russian last name. You can find me in damn near any insurance group. Happy to answer questions, make connections for people. At this point in time, I think I know so many damn people. If you have a problem, I will fix it. If I can't, I will find someone who can.
I love it. Guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, the only way I'm going to know if you like it is if you smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It helps more agents just like you find this information easier. Comment your thoughts down below. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.